What's up, everybody? We're talking SEC football tonight. Finally, we get to talk about the Big Boy Conference. We talked about, I guess, everybody. I think we've touched on everybody, technically, but we haven't gone too much in depth in some of the smaller conferences, obviously. Last week, we did the best of the rest, where Zach was pretty much the host, the co-host, and the other co-host. But it's kind of funny. We'll get to it in a little bit, but Zach was talking about how his SEC knowledge is, which he thinks he still has a lot of. It's just not as intense as typically is. I got Zach with me. What's up, buddy? You working on your projections right now?
Yeah, just kind of finishing them up. I'm going to release those probably tomorrow. I've got all the fantasy relevant players throughout college football. I've got projections for them, so be on the lookout for that.
Good. And Andrew, I'm going to let you make some crazy statements early and often here because last time I think you were a little slow to pull the trigger on some.
No, I wasn't slow. I realized after the first couple when Zach had to correct me that I had to keep it a little straight and narrow, but I'm completely objective on all things Georgia.
Yeah, so I'm gonna let you do that early here. I'm gonna let the reins loose. I'm gonna feed you, bait you into some of these things. Before we get into it, I just wanted to kind of show off. Obviously, everybody here knows that we're Fantasy Elite sponsored. At this point, you see the banners now. You see the sweet little overlays. Adam, aka Lou, aka Boss Man, made for us. Now I guess Grant's in the chat, which is cool. So just everybody wanted to make sure everybody knows to check it out. If you don't have the app, Fantasy Elite's a pretty sweet app, and they've also have a web. A desktop version. You can get on the internet, fantasyelite.com, which is pretty sweet, especially for guys like Andrew who don't have enough money to buy an iPad or an iPhone. So always a good thing there.
Only enough for that.
I'm guessing
for the, elite tournament that first week of college football. I've been saving all my pennies.
Yeah, dude, you got to save all your pennies for that thing, man. What do you think the chances are of you joining that?
I'll be getting pretty demoed leading up to the first weekend. So one of those nights I'll put the 250 into it and just go from there.
Yeah.
I would say 80%.
80%, I like it, man. I just hope we don't get paired up in week one because that'd be disappointing. Zach, any chance Zach, you're not gonna do it, are you? You're not a huge DFS guy, are you?
I'm gonna get into it more this year, I think. What's funny is I don't even have an NFL fantasy team, which is the first time in ever that I haven't had an NFL fantasy team. I think I'm just going to dedicate everything to college football, daily, seasonal, whatever.
Dude, I'm telling you, man.
Get the NFL.
You know how it is. It's awesome. It's just awesome. I can't just say anything other than awesome. But anyways, I wanted to kind of start today's show off a little bit different. The SEC, so everybody, obviously loves the SEC, especially where we live. You not so much, Andrew. You're in the Northeast. You're in Big Ten country now, right?
Big Ten.
Kind of. So I want to kind of start off with maybe how we think the conference will finish. So, Zach, who do you think are going to be the worst tier teams, the 3-4 teams that you think brutal, just in general record standings wise for this season?
Well, I don't see Tennessee finishing any better than 6-6, and that's best case scenario. 6-6. I looked through their schedule; they play a brutal schedule, and
yeah.
I looked through it and I said I might give them 6 wins, and that might be pushing it. So I think Tennessee's near the bottom. Kentucky, of course. Heck, Kentucky might beat Tennessee this year. I don't know, but I would say Tennessee, Kentucky, and then Arkansas in the West.
All right. I mean, doesn't Arkansas have the most unreal schedule there is?
Well, it's not as bad as Tennessee's though.
I think Florida has a super tough one too. I think personally, I mean, you can look at the typical ones that are going to be at the bottom, the Vandy, especially with no Jordan Matthews and a quarterback situation, which is going to be weird. Kentucky, Arkansas, and then I have Tennessee. I'm with you, man. Tennessee, if I had to put a number on it right now, I'd say 5. If you told me over under 5.5, I'd be pretty scared to go under, but I'd have to go under. Have to. Andrew, I know you have some big opinions on this Tennessee matter. So please, let's
yeah,
get right
man.
after it.
I mean, I pretty much agree with what you guys say. It's going to be tough for them to find victories, especially when they get drubbed in week 1 by Utah State. But pretty much I agree with a lot of what you guys said in terms of those teams, but I actually think, and it pains me to say it because I did love rooting for JFF the last couple of years. I think it's going to be tough for Texas A&M to get more than 5 or 6 wins.
Be tough.
Yeah, I mean, Kenny Hill looked pretty good in the time that he saw last year, but I mean, so many of those games came down to Johnny having to win them by himself just because the D was so bad. And I mean, the D, it didn't get better. They kicked a bunch of guys off this year in the offseason. They lost Evans, they lost Johnny. I mean, even if Kenny Hill plays to 75% of Johnny, I don't know. I mean, they've got a couple cream puffs, but it doesn't get tougher than the SEC West. So, I mean, I think 5-6 games for that team wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I guess I've never really thought about it, but they lose, their top 2 offensive players. They're trying to aren't they trying to regain like a running game? And they have no defense. They have one player on the first 4 teams of Phil Steele's defensive, all conference team, which is not good. You'd think that they have more than one guy. And with that SEC West schedule, they're going to get beat up, man. They had 8 wins last year with Johnny Manziel?
Yeah.
It's not going to get. You could probably slash that by 2 or 3 wins easily.
And they're ranked as like a top 15 team, which just seems. It seems pretty lazy just by whoever's voting on that.
They left Boise State out of the top 25.
Dude,
just
unbelievable.
Throwing that out there.
Not a case. Not sure if you guys know.
Go ahead.
But anyways, all right. So who do you guys think are who are the top 2 teams in this conference? Who do you think is number 1 and number 2 in this conference? And I know obviously people are going to say Bama, but you have to tell me right now, Bama wins it or Bama doesn't win it and they get second. Andrew, go.
I mean, I think we all have Georgia as the clear number 1. And then it comes down to Auburn and Alabama probably for that 2 spot, objectively. But no, it's so tough, dude. It seems like people are discounting Auburn as a one-year wonder to some degree, but what did they really lose? I get that they lost that guy Greg Robinson on their line, and he was really good, but I would expect them to be able to plug the running game in terms of Trey Mason pretty easily with Cameron Artis-Payne and Corey Grant. So I mean, I don't see that team getting any worse, and I mean, worst case, right there to challenge Bama. So I mean, that doesn't answer your question. I'll go Auburn though.
Ooh, Zach, what do you think?
I'm gonna go Alabama for the sheer reason of if it comes down to Alabama Auburn again, I think they beat him by 2 touchdowns.
Really?
The reason I say that is because there's no other game on that schedule that matters to Alabama more than that Auburn game. I mean, that's almost every year, but this year is they had that game won last year, they felt like, and it was just taken away from them. So I think if it comes down to them, for the SEC West, I think Alabama's going to put it to them.
I was all set to come on here and just say that Bama would lose 2-3 games, and now I just look at their schedule. It's the toughest teams they play are at home. Auburn at home, Texas A&M at home, Florida at home.
I got LSU on the road. That could be
LSU on the road but the thing is, I look at it all right, quarterback and quarterback, they both are kind of sketchy, right. And I'd rather have Bama's dominance in the last 5 years than.
Do they play Tennessee? The team they play every year.
Yeah.
That sucks for Tennessee, dude.
The game that might sneak up on Alabama though is that Mississippi State game right before Western Carolina.
Oh, thank God you didn't say Ole Miss.
No. No.
Dude, I love Dak Prescott. I will be rooting like crazy for Dak Prescott that game.
Yeah. Even though it's in Tuscaloosa, I think Mississippi State's built this year that they could pull off a game like that.
We'll get into the teams right after this comment because I'm going to have the last word because I'm the host, Andrew. That's a tricky situation for him. Right after a road game against LSU and right before a cream puff in Western Carolina. So that'll be interesting right there. Anyways, let's talk quarterbacks. Actually, Zach, we talked about it just briefly. You talked about what your thought process was on the conference and how it's a little bit harder for you to kind of grasp it due to targets and stuff for receivers. What are your thoughts on the SEC as a whole?
The SEC, there's no doubt the SEC has the most talent in the country. That's not debatable. I just think that I'll use Amari Cooper as an example. He, on any other team outside the SEC, would be a top 3 or 5 receiver fantasy-wise. But he's not going to see the targets to warrant the 85 catches, 1,300 yards, and 14 touchdowns. You're not going to see that out of him. And there's a lot of players like that. Now, running backs are a little different. You got some stud running backs. I'll let Andrew talk about that one. But it's tough for me because then you got quarterbacks they're very good, but they also face very good defenses. So it's very hard to put your faith in those guys.
Yeah, I like what you said about the receivers because it's a good point. There's a whole lot of spread around the whole attack, and even some of these teams have multiple running backs, multiple guys to throw to. Andrew, I'll let you just jump right into the quarterback situation here. Who do you think is like the one guy in this conference that you're going to be trying to roster the most in terms of quarterbacks in the SEC?
It's tough, dude. I think most likely at the end of the year, the guy who will probably have the most big games, I think, is probably Nick Marshall. But with him, you're going to have those games where he's 3 for 5 for 30 yards and like 80 yards rushing, and that's just going to – and that seems so completely unpredictable because it's just a matter of how the game flow is. I mean, not necessarily even the opponent, but he's going to have big games, like really big games, and then he's going to have some duds, not necessarily because he performed poorly, but just because maybe they hand the ball off to their running backs the entire game. I think my QB2 it's fairly unhealthy how much I love Matty Mock. I would say, like I've been the guy since I first read about him as while he was redshirting his freshman year. Like he set every passing record nationwide. Like he's Ben Mock's brother, right? That dude. He played at LSU, I think. Is that true?
I have no. I mean, I don't go that in depth on my DFS research. Andrew, I'm sorry.
But he looked great when he came in for Franklin last year, and like he torched what was at the time like a top-ranked Florida defense. And I mean, I guess the main issue with him is that he lost a lot of weapons in DGB, Damian Washington, Henry Josie. But I expect a big year out of him. I guess the only real argument outside of him for the QB2, I mean, it's aggressive to put Kenny Hill there, and I think we should all discuss him a little later. But I think a lot of people would completely forgot about Dak.
You can never forget about Dak. I mean, that's what happens, honestly, though, when you're in Starkville, Mississippi.
All right. I think it's fair to put Dak above Mock, but Mock against Bo Wallace, I think, is something to discuss too, because a lot of people probably have Bo above Mock, but I think Bo's going to have a lot of his TDs taken away, especially near the goal line by I think last year they brought in like a goal line QB. And
I think his name was.
Happen this year.
Yeah, I think they have that like 600-pounder that was coming in there to play goal line quarterback, the Fridge, I think his name is.
Yes.
I'm with you, man. Nick Marshall is my number one guy. It's a shame he's not. I was really looking forward. The two guys I was looking forward to using in week 1 of DFS was Nick Marshall and Braxton Miller. So bad luck with me because both those guys are not going to be. I mean, you can't roster Nick Marshall with his situation unless they say like he's going to miss like the first series, which they won't. Then you can't roster him. And Braxton Miller, obviously, with the torn the shoulder news.
What would you guess? The Nick Marshall suspension last. I'm thinking 1 quarter.
It's a quarter or a half for me. It's not going to be more than that. What do you think, Zach?
I think we lost Zach for the time being.
Come on, Zach. Where'd you go? I can hear him pounding on the keyboard, I feel like.
That was me typing to him. But just going back to Marshall and Jeremy Johnson, if we knew it was just one quarter, the problem is that the prices aren't going to be adjusted at this time, and the prices you're going to see at DFS wide are probably going to be for Marshall being as if he was playing a full game. So I mean that situation is pretty much unrosterable in week one, like you were saying, Chris.
Yeah, unless they which they're not going to. If they said he's out for the full game, Jeremy Johnson becomes a really good play.
Yeah, dude, he'd be in at 95% of lineups.
He would make it crazy though because of the Ohio State news and all the kind of soft pricing everywhere. What's going on for the first week? Yeah. But I will have a big. I think the big thing with Nick Marshall is what's going to happen with the running backs. Is the running backs? Are they going to come out and be studs like Trey Mason? Is Cameron Artis-Payne going to be a stud? Corey Grant going to be a stud? Because if they start to play anything like Trey Mason, then we're going to see a ton of crazy, stupid, dumb games where he goes like you said, 3 for 5 for 30 yards and a touchdown, and 30 yards rushing, and they win by 60 points. You know what I'm saying? There's just going to be games where he's not relevant because of Trey Mason numbers by those other guys.
Yeah, Artis-Payne looked like that inside runner last year. He could be that guy. Corey Grant, I think he was getting more jet sweep kind of plays, right? I don't think they see him as the 30 carry kind of guy.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be Artis-Payne is the guy that's going to be the threat, the Trey Mason type threat. Because you're right, Grant was the speed sweep outside guy, and they really don't need another outside guy with Nick Marshall,
right.
With his, with the option, the choice, all that kind of stuff. Zach, you're back, buddy.
I'm back. My computer had a little hiccup there. Sorry.
All right, we're good. Well, don't worry. We're still talking about Nick Marshall.
No, I didn't miss anything.
You didn't miss anything. So, yeah, I really like Nick Marshall. It'll be interesting to see.
Real quick, is that you touched briefly on the soft pricing across the industry? Is that something worth discussing, from a strategy standpoint? We could probably get into that closer to.
What's that now?
Yeah, maybe the soft pricing across the industry.
Oh.
On the different sites. There's some guys I saw on DraftKings, and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's kind of a crazy low price, but we'll probably talk about that next week. We'll probably devote maybe a show to kind of just a strategy real quick, a 30-minute guy to talk about strategy. But moving on, Dak Prescott, Matty Mock, I agree with you, man. I mean, I love Dak Prescott, more just because that team is going to be in games, and he's the guy that does everything for them. He'll run it. He's got a good receiver in Jamion Lewis. The running back situation's not completely clear in terms of who's going to, if the guy's going to be a stud or if he's just going to be a serviceable running back. And he's the goal line guy, which is always what you want out of a quarterback in college football. Zach, would you say that Nick Marshall will agree number one? Who do you think's number two, Dak or maybe Matty Mock or what?
I think it's Dak Prescott. I know you don't like Ole Miss, but I think Bo Wallace has got a good shot at turning in some good games this year, especially Daly. I think he's not necessarily a dual threat, but at the same time, he puts up great numbers on the ground. So, hey, I think he's worth a play.
We need to discuss Kenny Hill.
And we'll get to Kenny Hill. Just be patient, Andrew, please. I have nothing wrong with Bo Wallace and Ole Miss. I just feel like they're always overrated. They won 8 games last year and 7 before that. Can we just pump the brakes a little bit and just say, they're going to be 9, 8 wins? Can we not suggest that they're going to beat Bama and stuff?
The thing about Ole Miss, Hugh Freeze is recruited very well. I want to see if he can coach now. You know what I mean? He's got this talent that can compete. Now, can he make the best of it? I don't know. I don't trust in him, man.
Yeah, would people look at the talent on Ole Miss and say or that team in general and just be yeah, that team is going to win 11 games in the ACC, just in terms of I think they're just pumped up because they're in the SEC.
Yeah, and I think they got a senior quarterback. They've got a stud wide receiver, a couple wide receivers. I mean, they got the number one defensive end or number one player in the class last year, wasn't it?
They had Kandichi, he's actually he's Georgia. I saw him play in high school.
Yeah, I mean, they got some great prospects come in, and they're thinking that they're going to turn into like a SEC title contender, and I don't see it.
I'm not. I'm not. Andrew, are you an Ole Miss hater or are you an Ole Miss lover?
I'm kind of in between, I guess. I think they're trending in the right direction, considering how terrible they were before Hugh Freeze got there. And I mean, you're not gonna just suddenly become a 10-11 win SEC team overnight. I mean, even with 2 good recruiting classes, like most of these coaches have been building depth for like 3, 4, 5, 6 years. So I don't know if this is the year where he goes 10-11 wins, but like I wouldn't hate. I mean, I wouldn't call it a failure if they win 8 or 9 again.
All right. So we have some new quarterbacks in the league, or in the conference, I should say. Kenny Hill, not Brandon Allen. That guy's still been lame for a while. Hudson Mason, and then South Carolina's Dylan Thompson. Not necessarily new, but maybe new to the starting role. Which one of those 3 do you think is the most successful, guys?
I think Mason. Did you say Hudson Mason, right?
Yeah, Hudson Mason.
Yeah, I think he's got the best talent around him to be successful. Yeah, I think Georgia and South Carolina are going to compete for that SEC East, I think. But I think Georgia offensively has everything around Mason to make him be good. And he's a senior. So he's been there. He's been around the block. He knows the system. He knows everything. That's why I would lean his way.
And he, and he played obviously last year when Aaron Murray was hurt.
Right.
Andrew, are you leaning Hudson Mason, or are you going to go with your boy Kenny Hill? And yes, I just dubbed him your boy.
Yeah, but Mason's got to be my boy, dude. Come on. But, dude, I think Mason's got the highest floor for basically the reason Zach said. Specifically, like, he looked fine when he played last year. Granted, they didn't win the bowl game against Nebraska. But, I mean, I see him being maybe like 75% of Murray in terms of numbers. But, I mean, in terms of weapons around him, doesn't Kenny Hill have just as good weapons? And
he does.
I mean, he could. I guess the issue is he could be out of his job in 2 weeks if, say, they go to South Carolina, lose. I mean, I think they've got a cream puff after that, but I think they turn around and have a couple of big games right after that. Do you have the schedule in front of you, Chris?
Yeah.
A&M?
Yeah.
A&M. Where are they at?
A&M. Good old TAMU.
So they opened at South Carolina. So at South Carolina, Lamar, Rice, at SMU is the first 4.
All right. So they'll probably be 3-1. But so his job should be safe for at least those games, and he should have some great numbers.
That one loss is to Lamar, right?
Yeah, of course.
Good Lord. SMU, man. June Jones.
What do we see his ceiling as, Kenny Hill, though? I mean, I assume it would have to be insane, very high, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's – I'm not saying it's not Johnny Football numbers, right. But, I mean, he could have a very good season, and I don't know where to really place him because he's got a wide range of where he could be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to come in here and hate on him like we hated on Trevor Knight, but the similarities are in that now that the news has been announced that he's Texas A&M starting quarterback, not necessarily on daily because the prices are already out and he's cheap week 1, but in terms of seasonal, you're going to have to pay a lot to get him, and he's definitely got like very low floor, very high ceiling, and that, I mean, it's tough to bank on him reaching that ceiling.
Yeah, that's really scary in terms of seasonal because that wide range, and you're going to have to pay for him higher. It's just, I would never do that. That's just not my personality. DFS-wise, though, I can completely see myself using him in the first 5 weeks with the South Carolina game being kind of sketchy. Lamar, Rice, SMU, Arkansas, and the rest kind of gets a little tough from there out. ULM in November.
Going to be so owned in week 2 when he just puts up maybe decent numbers in week 1, and then they go to Lamar. If that game's even in play, like he's going to be so cheap probably. Assuming that everyone just doesn't override their algorithms and like prop him up, like he might be.
But in that game though, if Lamar is on there, why wouldn't you take Kyle Allen?
You know,
You know what I mean? Because he's going to play a lot.
Well, I don't think you can. I don't think I would ever bank on a backup.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think the Lamar game's going to be on the schedule on the thing, but it might.
yeah. It's
Some
been weird
sites
so
will
far. Like Arizona State, Weber State. You can own Taylor Kelly, but like you can't own the Weber State guys. So I mean, it seems like it's very arbitrary how sites are putting teams up. To some degree, like some games, it seems like just haven't been included for whatever reason, and then like other games, you'll see like only one part of the game included. But I mean, it makes sense, but at the same time, it's arbitrary.
Well, you can't add Weber State players in there. Like it's the thing is, some sites will have it where you.
You don't see yourself stacking Weber State?
Maybe against like Cal, but not Arizona State. Like I know, like Fantasy Aces doesn't have. They don't have any games that are like like that at all. Okay. But like a site like DraftKings will have games where Indiana plays Indiana State. That's just how they do it.
Yeah.
I personally like. It scares me to death when those are in there because I know one of two things is going to happen. I'm going to pick the guy playing against the terrible team, and he's going to play for 2 quarters and get nothing. Or I'm not going to pick him, and he's going to play 2 quarters and get like 4 touchdowns. Like that always happens to me, so I always get really scared off by it. But in terms of Kenny Hill, to kind of get us back on track, I really like him, man. I don't see why you wouldn't use him in DFS at the beginning. The South Carolina game, maybe a little sketchy, but like I don't think I see them as a running team. Like I don't think they're going to put enough running emphasis in there to really negate any value from Kenny Hill. And the fact that he can run around, I mean, I personally would just be I'm a big fan of Kenny Hill, at least for the first 5 or 6 games.
Let's just real quick with him. Like obviously after the first game, we'll all be big fans because of his value, but he's so cheap across all the sites week 1. I know South Carolina has a historically pretty good D, but like losing Clowney, I think they lost a couple other guys too. Do you think that considering his cheap price, would you play him in a cash game?
I think like when we to next week we'll be talking about it, and then that Thursday we'll have the Boise State Ole Miss game, and it'll have the Texas A&M South Carolina game. And it's going to have maybe 1 or 2 other games. I don't know. I don't remember exactly what game it is. But if you don't get Bo Wallace against Boise State, I would certainly consider Kenny Hill a top guy to go after that. Because moving on to Dylan Thompson here in a second, I like Dylan Thompson. I just don't know if I like Dylan Thompson enough with Mike Davis there to scoop all the touchdowns. And that's kind of like that'll go into the strategy of drafting in Fantasy Elite. But I mean, where do you see Dylan Thompson at, Zach?
He's a good quarterback. I mean, and Connor Shaw, I was looking at his numbers the other day. He had very good numbers, and it was quiet. Like you didn't really hear about Connor Shaw putting up solid numbers all year. But I think Dylan Thompson.
Different players, though.
Well, I hear you. I get it. I'm just saying, but like Connor Shaw last year threw 1 interception all year, 23 touchdowns to 1 pick.
I just saw that too. It's amazing. Connor Shaw is a crazy man.
And I thought about that, and I was like, that is insane in the SEC. I mean, it's insane, period, but in the SEC, that's really good. But,
the only receiver they lost is, Bruce Ellington, the receiver that went to, I don't know where he went, but he's gone. So they return a ton of catches.
They're pretty much back. Other than losing Connor Shaw, they've got quite a bit coming back. So, I don't know. I guess to answer your question, though, I see, Dylan Thompson in the right game. He would be, I guess, a good play. I don't have their schedule in front of me, but see, against East Carolina, he might be really good because that game might be a shootout.
Dude, that's going to be a shootout. Mike Davis is going to be negated in that game just because, unless he puts up like that 10-catch game like he did last year one time, they're going to need to score. Like Shane Carden from East Carolina, I saw Lou put a post up, like 12 of 12 for like 158 yards and 2 touchdowns in the scrimmage the other day. That's great news for Dylan Thompson. In every situation, that's a great thing for Dylan Thompson.
I don't want the boss man to hate on me, but like every time that ECU and South Carolina have played, Cardin's been kind of stifled, no? Like I feel like the score's been pretty tame. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know. Like,
move on.
This year.
yeah, but East Carolina is different this year, man. You better get on their backs, man. I love East Carolina. Like, for real, I like East Carolina before the fact. And I will say this to end the quarterback situation here in the SEC. If either of you guys pick Justin Worley in any time of DFS, you're immediately kicked off the show because it means you know nothing.
Let me go change my team real quick.
Yeah, you better go switch out all your teams now. All right, top running back in the conference, Andrew. This is your time to be homerism. To show me some homerism because it's the truth. Go for it, big guy. Go.
I was thinking Russell Hansbrough.
Jesus.
No, I mean, dude, Gurley's the best. I wish we could assume that he'll play 12 games because the matchup doesn't matter. You almost hope that they're facing a decent defense because they just like against Clemson last year. He just made that defense look pathetic. Just running over guys, running past guys, running through guys. Like, yeah, there are very few guys that you could say like you really want them to be facing like a better team than a worse team. But I think he's one of them just because Georgia just becomes so dependent on him in those situations, and they just feed him the rock all day. He's great. I mean, clearly I'm probably not the right person to ask, but.
Does Superman wear Todd Gurley sweatpants, like pajamas to bed at night, or what? Man, I love that guy. Todd Gurley. I'm a Gurley man. I'm gonna have him on every single DFS team in week 1, guaranteed, except for maybe Fantasy Elite where they don't have the first pick. It's a guarantee. Zach, is that a little too much, do you think, or is that not enough?
No, I mean, he's clear. I think he's clearly the best back in the SEC, fantasy-wise. If you're asking me best back talent-wise, just who I think's biggest like athletic freak, I guess, I'd go Derrick Henry from Alabama. Like the guy, isn't he like 6'3", like 250? Like
it's a whole lot of man. That's all.
Yeah, he runs like a 4.4. Like, but anyway, but Gurley's the best back fantasy-wise.
All right, so I mean, what do we do? Alabama. I'm sorry, Henry, and then Drake when he comes off suspension. What are we supposed to do DFS-wise with this running back situation, Zach? You're the guy with the projections and depth charts.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're all three going to get solid. I mean, I have Kenyon Drake getting 100 carries this year, and I got Yeldon get 175 and Henry getting 150. So they're obviously going to run the ball quite a bit like they always do. But, yeah, Drake, it's going to be tough because you don't know how much he's going to get to run the ball. Like he might, if they're winning by 30, he might carry the ball 6 times and they put in a freshman. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wouldn't think that Drake's going to factor in that much, dude. It seemed like they kind of whittled his role down the stretch a little more as they integrated Henry more. Yeah. And I mean, it's gonna be tough to call week to week between Henry and Yeldon. I mean, I'm in a lot of situations if there's a decent gap in between their salaries, I'm gonna just go with the cheaper guy from a week to week standpoint. Unless, I mean, I really don't see Yeldon performing that much better than Henry unless he's getting the bulk of the carries. But I mean, if it's close, I mean, Henry's got potential to go 80 yards every time he touches the ball. So
yeah,
I mean,
and I feel like if they're inside the 5, how do you not give it to Derrick Henry? Who's gonna tackle that man? Tell me. You know what I mean? So
yeah, like I said, he's a whole lot of man, there. The tough thing with that is it's Bama, so they're going to just stifle teams and just score a ton of points, and they do it so spread out. You know, maybe Amari gets a touchdown. You know, I think the fact that Jacob Coker is not like some stud coming into the season, maybe he develops into one, but they've really never had that fancy stud at quarterback. They rely on the running back so much. So hopefully we can kind of figure it out. Maybe Henry just busts out and just dominates, and they just say Yeldon go sit on the bench. But that's a situation, honestly, with such a talented group that I probably will rarely play them. It's so rare that happens for me, but I probably won't touch them at all this whole year. I just don't. With the guys like Gurley and all them running around, there's no reason for me to take that chance unless they're underpriced.
If they're not extremely highly priced though, like they both, I feel like they'll offer a very nice floor, assuming if they're medium priced. Like I feel like a lot of games, especially before Drake comes off his suspension, is it two? It's like 2 or 3 games, right? But I feel like both those guys are a lock for like 100 and a touchdown each for the first couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at their schedule right now, and I don't know what team's going to stop them on the ground. I mean, I guess the first team that's going to give them any resistance, I guess, would be Florida. But I don't know, man. I think Florida's strength is in its secondary.
Yeah.
So I think Alabama might just ground and pound that whole game.
All right, moving on to the other team in the state of Alabama, Auburn. We got D. Coop wanting to hear about this guy, Peyton Barber. But before we get to Peyton Barber, an under-the-radar guy, I'm guessing, are you looking at Artis Payne as like the stud, and then Corey Grant is kind of like the guy that's, I don't know, the Robin, where he's not going to have huge games consistently, but he will have huge games? Zach?
I think they're both going to have very similar seasons. You're not going to see Trey Mason, dominate the carries again. I think you're going to see very similar seasons from those two guys.
All right, Andrew?
I think initially, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Mason's role definitely grew as the year went on, to the point where 70% of the plays down the stretch were just Nick Marshall snaps and Nick Marshall hands it off to Mason. So I think initially you're definitely spot on with they'll spread the wealth around it for the first few games, see where they're strong. But I mean, if there's one guy that has the chance to develop into the Trey Masons, obviously Artis Payne, who showed as his backup last year a good ability to run through between the tackles. But I mean, I think it wouldn't be wise to think that Grant could develop into that same role. So I mean, but at the same time, Grant's got that big playability. Like I think he had some games last year where he had 2 or 3 touches and got like 100 yards and a touchdown or 2.
Dude,
so, I mean, both guys have strengths and potential weaknesses.
And to your point about Barber, I guess to answer that question, I think you're looking at like an Alabama situation where you've got a guy, he's going to get quite a few carries because they'll probably get up on a team in a hurry. And he can come in and get a very good workload in the second half.
So
sure.
If one of those two goes down, do you think Peyton Barber has the talent to become a guy that you need to own in season leagues and a guy you need to consider at least at this echelon of DFS playing?
I think if one of those guys goes down, yeah, I think he's definitely a guy you need to go try to grab.
You put it in your waiver claim right now, Chris?
I don't need running backs, man.
I think somebody drafted him, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure they did. With how deep our league is, you'd be kind of crazy not to have a running back that's a freshman on Auburn. But, man, if you look at these stats from these Auburn running backs, Corey Grant averaged like 9.8 yards a carry, like 60 carries, and he had like the second most, 664. And Cameron Artis Payne averaged 6.7 yards per carry, and he was like 661. Dude, just unbelievable stats like for these guys. And I think a lot of it, I don't think you have to be like some stud running back in this offense, because Gus Malzahn's always got some crazy blocking technique that like allows guys to get an automatic like 10 yards. Like, when you're playing Tiger Woods and you hit the A button really fast, you get like an extra 10%. Like that's like the same thing for these running backs. I don't get it. It just happens. Which is why I kind of love Nick Marshall. And I think D. Coop kind of said it nicely in the chat that these running backs are going to have the most value, because you see, Henry and Yeldon are kind of high priced because we all know about them. We all know they're studs. Right. But Artis Payne and Grant never really had that like main guy role. We don't know who's going to win it. We don't know if it's going to be shared. So I think early on people could really, if they hit on it, they could win big, because these guys are going to put up huge numbers. We just don't know consistency of it just yet. I think it'd be kind of crazy not to include Mike Davis as top 2 running back potential in this conference. Like Mike Davis has the potential to be the number 2 guy, and really if if Todd Gurley has one bad game, he could be number one. Like, that's just how good he is. Do you think that's a crazy statement, Andrew?
No, unfortunately not. And I mean, especially considering Gurley's blocky ankles and just general propensity to miss games every now and then or miss quarters, halves, whatever. I mean, Davis is so good. He doesn't even need that. Even though he is like the workhorse in that offense, he doesn't even need that many carries. Like he can go for 12 and 150 and 2 touchdowns, no problem. Let me spin the wheel and throw a question at you, Zach. Between these 3 running backs, no, let's just keep between these 2. Who would you rather have, Alex Collins or Kelvin Taylor?
Oh, I'm gonna go with Kelvin Taylor, and here's why. I think that you have Jonathan Williams there at Arkansas, and you've also got Corliss Marshall. I think he's a freshman, and all 3 of those guys are going to get significant carries, and it's hard to tell which way it's going to go. Like Collins was clearly, I think, the emerging guy last year, but I've watched some things on Marshall, and he is the real deal. So I'm going to stay away from there. I'm going to go with Taylor from Florida.
Yeah, so let me go back at you and say that Kurt Roper's history is that he never goes with a bell cow back. He always, at Duke, used 2-3 running backs. So in terms of, let's say both of them would get, let's say 180 carries. Who would you say would be the better running back?
Who are we talking?
Collins and Taylor. Collins, okay.
If they both get 180 carries, I'm going Collins. But I don't know if Collins is going to get 180 carries.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting here. Interesting, guys. Nice little sidebar there. I think the problem with picking an Arkansas running back is there's 2 of them, for one.
3.
And, 2, like, proven, like, studs. Like, Jonathan Williams and Collins had great years last year. And then there's a potential 3rd one. And the fact that they might not lead a game in the SEC the whole season. Like, when are they going to run the football when they're down by 30 points every single week? Like, I think what is Phil Steele forecast on this team? Like 2-10, like or 3-9, like their conference is crazy. They have Nicholls State, which they should win. Northern Illinois, UAB. Those are like their easier ones. Texas Tech at Texas Tech is going to be tough, and they're going to be up. Texas Tech is going to score some points really quick. So the problem with me is that they're going to need to throw the ball, and they don't throw the ball very well. I like Kelvin Taylor more just because Florida needs to run it. They have Quentin Dunbar, who's a good receiver. The quarterback situation is better with Driscoll supposedly having, doing great things in the offseason, adding 50 pounds to his squat max or whatever. And, that situation seems to be better than Arkansas is completely.
Yeah.
Fair. There's so many good running backs in this conference. We still need. I feel like we still need to touch on the Vanderbilt situation, and we need to talk Fournette as well.
Woo, Fournette. Oh, is that directed at me?
Ooh. All right. So let's. Do you want to go Vanderbilt situation right now, Andrew?
I think it's worth discussing. What do you think, Zach?
I think Jerron Seymour's got a good ceiling this year. I think he's 1,000-yard back, or maybe right around 1,000 yards, 10 to 12 touchdowns. I think it's definitely a solid.
Do you think it's correct to assume that with Derek Mason taking over, that he'll bring that Stanford kind of feel to the team in terms of the offense? In which case, like Steve Morris seems like would be like a straight stud in that situation.
Right. But the thing about Stanford is they have 2, 3, 4 backs that they like to use. So, and he may not have that yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, they relied so much on Gaffney last year I don't know. Vanderbilt does have a couple good backs. Like it scares me that Seymour only had 750 yards, even though he had 14 touchdowns.
Right.
But I mean, he's definitely it's I think it's a tough call.
Dude, by the way, I just realized that Temple plays Vanderbilt that first day.
By the way, Vanderbilt's favored by like 2 touchdowns, I think.
What? What's wrong with Temple, man?
I could be wrong. I think it was it was over 10, I think.
Dude, I'm rostering PJ Walker, second pick.
Dude, I want to own him so badly, but I'm afraid that like he goes like 9 of 23 for like 130 yards and 2 interceptions.
Why would you even say that, man?
Because he's facing a real defense.
Vanderbilt's not a real defense.
They were
just
top 20 against.
stayed at a Holiday Inn last night. Okay. Gosh, come on! Don't ever talk bad about PJ Walker on this show. That's
It's
a
Vandy
very
minus 16.
minus 16.
Yeah.
Good lord. Good lord. Anyways, what was the other running back situation? Tennessee. What'd you say, Andrew? You want to talk about?
LSU?
LSU.
Oh my God, LSU. That is a weird one. Zach, do you want to, with your depth chart, at least let us know who's going to be playing? Because Fournette should be playing, right? But there's so many guys. McGee, right? What's the deal?
I think they come out and say this week that both of those guys are going to share carries. I mean, that's kind of the obvious, but I think like they've talked Fournette up so much, like it's hard for me to believe that they're not going to make him the lead back.
Feel the same way.
Like the way they've talked about him, like he's the next Adrian Peterson, if not better. You know, even McGee said that. Like he said, like McGee, the senior, was saying like it's a privilege to play in the backfield with this guy. Like,
That's nuts. Like, what is that guy? What is he doing in practice that makes a senior that averaged like 7 carries a game last year, or 7 yards at carry last year? That's nuts.
Yeah. So I have in the projection where they both have 150 carries because I'm not sure how. Because Les Miles is weird, man. I don't know how he's going to do it. And they've also
Hilliard too.
Yeah, but they also said that the quarterbacks are going to split time in the first game. Did you read that today?
Yeah, dude. I think he's just kind of screwing around because he doesn't want to let Wisconsin know what's up.
Yeah, it's got to be.
Yeah.
Well, Wisconsin, by the way, random, does Wisconsin have their quarterback situation like in stone?
They're naming on game day.
Yeah.
So it's just a battle of like just
Egos.
unknowns, like Belichick versus Belichick right now. I tell you what, if you told me right now that they were going to split time, LSU quarterbacks, I would 100% take Wisconsin to win that game. That's nuts to me.
Yeah.
Anyways, Fournette, though, that's crazy that they're talking like Fournette is like this amazing human being, which I'm sure he is. Good for him. But
Like they're talking like almost like he's the next Barry Sanders, man. It's like it's nuts.
So knowing what we know now, like you can't, assuming you want to actually win money, like you can't actually roster him in DFS like going into that Wisconsin game, right? Like it just seems like it's not a smart move whatsoever.
Fournette?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's a smart move. Like as talented as he may be, and he may have 200 yards in that game, but
Maybe on like a really small night slate, but on like a full day slate, it just seems like it's not gonna be like you can't confidently do that.
like I mean, what if he comes out and gets 10 carries, you know, for 80 yards? I mean, it's like a good game, but
Yeah.
you know, we
you
don't
better
know.
have a touchdown and some catches.
Yeah.
So, this is going to be we're going to have to talk about this again because I can almost guarantee that this Wisconsin LSU game is going to be a part of the late game slate on Fantasy Elite on Saturday. It's almost a guarantee.
They've got there's that awesome 10:30 Oregon South Dakota State game. I'm looking forward to that already.
You are all over these like random West Coast games.
Yeah, don't make me give my speech about drinking and watching college football again.
Please don't. Once was enough. Have we chatted? I mean, what about Trey Carson or whatever his name is at Texas A&M? Any value there? Like anything worth to be had? I don't think it's going to be panning out to be anything that big for Texas A&M. What about you guys?
You know, when you were talking about it earlier, how you said that they may not really run the ball, like they ran the ball more than you think they did. I mean, Johnny Football led the team in carries, of course, but they had 3 or 4 backs that combined for like almost over 300 carries.
And that's what sucks, though. You can't play them because they both pay all those guys in.
But they get a lot of touchdowns. Like all of them had 6, 7 touchdowns. So
yeah, it's tough to bank on though.
Right. Yeah, you can't really bank on it, but they do run the ball, especially when they get inside the 5. They run that note, that up tempo.
Yeah.
Stuff, but then they run when they get inside the 10, 5, 10-yard line.
Brent Molina. He's so trustworthy for a TD and 80 yards a game. It was great.
Yeah. Oh, well, in Trey Carson, I was looking just to kind of compare him and Trey Williams. Carson's 6 foot 230, and Williams is 5'8", 195.
Yeah.
So I think Carson will be the guy getting the ball inside the 5.
Agreed.
Ooh, that's tough, man. These running backs in this conference are amazing. I love Gurley. I just say that I love Gurley.
I love Gurley.
Receivers, though, complete opposite. I'm just this is just tough. This right here.
And there's talent. There's a lot of talent at receiver.
Yeah, the thing is, Sammy Coates. What do you think about Sammy Coates as a receiver? A lot of talent, right? You think he's a solid receiver?
I think he's a great
NFL potential.
Yeah, NFL talent. I think he's a great NFL talent. As far as his fantasy production goes, it's very limited with that offense.
Dude, he had 42 catches last year. That's nuts.
Yeah, and they were all for big plays.
Yeah, he had 900 yards on 42 catches. What's going on? Obviously it's Auburn's offense for you, but that's the typical, besides Vanderbilt and maybe Texas A&M with Mike Evans, that's the typical SEC passing game. Florida doesn't have a passing game. Vanderbilt now doesn't have a passing game probably. Kentucky never had a passing game. Tennessee has Justin Worley, so we know that answer. There's a lot of receivers not going to have a lot of value in this conference just because of random quarterbacks or just styles of offense.
Right. I agree completely.
Top receiver in the SEC, Andrew. What do you think?
I think it pretty clearly comes down between Treadwell and Jamion Lewis, at least. I mean,
what about Seals Jones?
From fantasy perspective, just who do I seasonal? Who I think is going to have best stats at the end of the year? No, I don't. I think he's slightly below that. But between those two, I think I want Jamion just because it seems like he has such a great rapport with Dak as the guy who he looks for all the time. I'm not saying he's gonna put up Lockett numbers, but it's that same kind of thing where Jamion Lewis is the guy Dak Prescott looks for whenever he needs a big play, first down, someone in the end zone. Especially down the stretch last year, he put up that huge bowl game. I mean, granted, the entire team did, but I don't remember Jamion's numbers off the top of my head. But I think he's probably top 15 receiver nationwide, top 20.
Ooh.
Which for SEC is definitely saying something, just because we don't really have the statistical wide receivers returning this year.
He ended with 64 catches, 923 yards, and 5 touchdowns. But you're right. And another thing is they run the ball with Jamion Lewis. They just want to get him the ball as much as they can. One of those smaller receivers.
And
I love Jamion Lewis. I have him in our league.
Oh yeah.
You didn't know I have Jamion Lewis?
Oh. You might be getting a trade offer for him, but Dak wasn't the starter all last year either, right? There was a lot of attrition in that quarterback situation, I think, early in the season that didn't lead to the best results for Jamion. So I don't think it's necessarily fair to look at his last season numbers and say this is what I can expect with Dak Prescott.
Yeah, they had what was his name? Tyler Russell, I believe his name was. Yeah, they had it was a weird situation. There were times when they didn't know for sure who was going to start. I'm going to skip ahead to somebody that Grant mentioned in the chat, a guy that, I don't know what to think about this. Actually, I do know what to think about this guy. I want to hear what you guys think. Marquez North. Zach, tell me the truth on Marquez North this year. Grant says watch out for him.
Yeah, watch out. I don't know if that's a good watch out or a bad watch out. But, Tennessee's actually loaded at wide receiver. I only have him pegged for 50 catches this year, around 600 yards, 5 touchdowns. But that's more of because they have so much talent at wide receiver. You know what I mean? I can't expect a huge season from him.
He is a great talent. I like him. I mean, he had that awesome catch against South Carolina, everybody remembers, and he had some other great catches too. I mean, he's physically very talented, but I mean, I think it comes back to Justin Worley not being very good, and kind of like what you were touching on, Chris, how they have like 3 or 4 very capable receivers who aren't just like possession guys, but I think also primarily function as deep threats like him.
So I think Marquez North is a good talent. Obviously, I think Zach just said the same thing. Justin Worley, man. Like if he had a good receiver, like a good quarterback. I mean, if Coker, I'll take a guy I've never seen before over Justin Worley right now. Coker, like if Coker was his quarterback, I'd feel much better about Marquez North. But I just can't get behind him or Pig Howard or any of the stud receiver they got, the freshman who we were talking about briefly last week. I just can't do it, man. I just can't get around that. What are your thoughts on Texas A&M's receivers? Because we have, Ricky Seals-Jones was a huge prospect. Malcolm Kennedy had a good year last year. We have Speedy Noyle. Zach, who's like the number 1 target you think for Kenny Hill going into this, like based off depth charts and all this other game plan, I guess?
I think it's got to be Seals-Jones. Malcolm Kennedy's good. He's up there too. I like Seals-Jones. Just I'm giving him the nod because I think he's a better receiver, just pure talent-wise.
All the lineups I've been filling out across sites, like I see Seals-Jones and Speedy Noyle just chilling at like close to minimum price, and I just want to add them so bad to my lineups, and then I start thinking like that it's South Carolina week 1, like who knows what's going to happen, but I think those guys are so talented. Like I could see them coming out and just making like a very concerted effort to get the ball to Noyle and Seals-Jones, just force feed them over the course of the first few games of the season, and try and develop the passing game. Because like Malcolm Kennedy, you have he's just like a 60-70 catch guy, maybe he's a possession receiver though. But basically what Zach was saying, like Seals-Jones and Noyle definitely have a chance to be special, especially in that offense.
And Noyle's going to get some carries too, I have to believe.
Yeah.
And Seals-Jones is like Mike Evans 2.0. He's 6'5", 225.
I think he could be better than Mike Evans.
Whoa. That's bold.
I think he's better. I think he's a better wide receiver than Mike Evans. That's my personal opinion.
Fair.
Now he won't get the numbers
for Seals.
He doesn't have Johnny Football throwing it to him. Throwing up prayers.
Well, yeah. That's to say. Seals-Jones needs like that crazy like audible at the line, just throw a quick pass to him, like think from Kenny Hill, or like the crazy jump ball situation that was like every other play it seemed like. That would really elevate Seals-Jones just because he's huge, but that's a bold statement because Mike Evans, man, he had some unbelievable games last year. Just can't even imagine how good those games were, and then he would just put them up. Andrew, since you're the Georgia guy, what do I think about these receivers? Do I like any of them? Do I like all of them? Do I go cry in my room because I have no idea what's going on here?
They're all. It seems like they're all coming back from injury, and they're all going to kind of spread the wealth. Like I wouldn't put too many eggs in any of those baskets. Malcolm Mitchell's already dinged up again. I think Bennett got hurt last year. I can't remember if Conley did, but it just seemed like the entire receiving corps got hurt last year. But I mean, it doesn't seem like there's one dominant guy amongst Georgia's receivers that you could really invest in confidently. I don't know, Zach. Do you have a different opinion?
No, I've got them all kind of pegged for around 40 to 50 catches. Like I got Conley, Bennett, and Mitchell, assuming they're all healthy. All my projections are assuming they play all the games and they're healthy.
Gotcha. Do you think Treadwell steps up and becomes more of a TD threat this year?
Yeah, that I like Treadwell, man. I have him coming in for 80 catches this year, leading the SEC in wide receivers. SEC 80 catches. So, I have him for 9 touchdowns.
Yeah, he's gonna be a beast.
Yeah.
I've definitely got him in a lot of my lineups already for week 1 because I think he's gonna burn your secondary pretty good, Zach.
Yeah. Except their secondary is not bad, so it'll be fun to watch.
Okay.
Do they have man, it's gonna be fun the first week. The first show is really gonna be about Boise State. Like, just do we mess with Zach the whole time? Do we get an unbiased opinion? Does Zach nail the Boise State call? Like, it's gonna be cool. The first show that we do for Fantasy Elite, like specifically, is gonna be based off of Zach's team. I like Treadwell. Obviously, you gotta like Treadwell with his no more Dante Moncrief, and Bo Wallace is still gonna continue to throw the ball a ton, and he's a good quarterback. I think it's pretty safe to say he's going to be, top 3 or 5 easily in the SEC. Do you think that Amari Cooper is going to burn us consistently this year, or do you think that there's a chance that he goes back to being like that really good talent that he is? He just can't show it consistently. Zach.
I think he's going to burn you this year, and I say that because I think he's going to have. In a 12-game season, I think he's going to have 5 or 6 really good games, and then he's going to have 5 or 6 mediocre or dud games. So if you're going to play him, you got to pick him the right week, man, because he's going to be so hit or miss. I have a feeling he's going to go for a lot of yards, just on a whole lot of catches.
I agree, Zach, but I guess this isn't saying much because last year was so bad, but he's definitely going to improve last year. Like, let's not forget, he had a bad foot for much of the first part of the year last year. That definitely contributed to his just having an overall terrible season. But on top of that, do you think it's impossible to say that Jacob Coker is more talented than AJ McCarron, and they might open up that playbook a little more? You don't think that's possible?
No, I think it's very possible.
Oh, okay.
I think Jacob Coker, I might be stepping over a boundary here. I think he might be one of the best quarterbacks that they've ever had there.
Oh, God.
We all hate Alabama here, dude, so it's fine.
Talent-wise. No, I'm not talking about with you. I'm talking about with people that are watching this show.
Oh, my God. You've been hanging around Angie too much. Did you just say that? Good God.
Anyway, I think Coker has the talent to be very good. Here and at the next level.
Oh, God. We just went Mel Kiper on us now, too.
Yeah. I have him as a 4th-round grade, actually. No,
yeah. Hey, by the time he gets drafted in the 4th round, you're going to have plenty of time to get that hair going to Mel Kiper status. So, just a little FYI there. What about, really quick, before we hit up tight ends, I think we've pretty much exhausted receivers. Quentin Dunbar, Florida. He says he's going to have a better year this year. Do you think that happens, Zach? You have projections going on. What do you think?
I don't really know exactly what numbers he had last year, but I have him for 45 catches this year. I don't know if that's better or what.
Wow, this is impressive. He had 40 catches for 548 with 0 touchdowns.
Really? 40? Yeah. Well, I have him for 45 for 550 and 5. So, but I have Demarcus Robinson being the best receiver on that team at 55 catches. So, I don't think there's going to be a one just elite receiver of that group. You got to remember, they have Andre DeBose is still there. He's back. He's been there for like 12 years, I think.
Dude, he was there with Brantley.
Yeah.
Jeez. It's not good when you're there with Brantley.
No. Tough times.
But they've got a lot of receivers. It's just I see an improvement, I guess, from Florida, but nothing to say that fantasy relevancy, that might be going too far.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just, I had to cover all areas there. What about tight ends in this group? I actually like a couple of the tight ends, but I think that they're going to be, like in all of college football, they're going to be streaky. We have to be looking at Hunter Henry and O.J. Howard as the top 2 to 3 tight ends in this conference, Andrew?
I think it's Evan Ingram, and it's not very close. Before I forget what his injury was, but if he got hurt in like the 3rd or 4th game, I think. Is that correct or no? He got hurt early in the year and kind of just missed all of the games and then kind of came back for the bowl game. But before that, he was doing amazing things as a true freshman for Ole Miss. Amazing relative to the tight end at least. So I'm pretty sure he was like a big ballyhooed recruit. One of those other part of that amazing Ole Miss recruiting class where they got the best player at every position in the country, basically. But I mean, he's supposedly one of those ultra athletic guys, and I mean, he put up the stats to match it, and he's in a great system for offense. That I mean, you would project that team to be in a bunch of shootouts. So I mean, he's my number one.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought him up because I forgot about him. Evan Ingram was like a guy I really liked before he got hurt. He had 21 catches for like 216 or something like that with a couple of touchdowns. And, yeah, with Moncrief gone, he's going to be a target, a guy they're going to be looking at. What do you think about Hunter Henry and O.J. Howard, though? With Ingram, I think you're right. Number one, just due to the offense, Andrew, just due to the talent there. What about these other two guys, Zach?
I think Hunter Henry could be Arkansas's leading receiver this year. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing because they don't have any talent or I'm not going to say talent. They don't have anybody that is fantasy relevant at all at wide receiver. And Hunter Henry may be their best weapon in the passing game.
Yeah, they have a bunch of older guys at receiver and
yeah, but they're very average.
Oh, I'm not. I wasn't disagreeing with you. I'm with you. It's really sad to see a bunch of juniors and seniors, and nothing. Just no. I mean, Brandon Allen certainly doesn't help. And I'm trying to look and see who was the guy last year that was not very good for them. AJ Derby. Yeah, that was a fun experiment. They're gonna be passing a lot. Maybe that helps Hunter Henry. Who knows? But he had some solid games last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's easily the best target on that team. Easily.
What do you guys think about Jake McGee at Florida? Transfer from Virginia.
Is he eligible?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I like him then.
I was reading something about how he was going to be integrated very much into the offense this year. So he could be a steal because I don't know how they've got him priced at a tight end. I don't know.
Good call, Zach. I agree with you, especially since their offensive coordinator definitely utilizes tight ends at Duke with Deaver and I forget the other guy's name. But I think the article I read on McGee was basically that at Virginia they decided this summer they were going to spread him out wide and make him a receiver, and he was just like, I'm not having that, I'm out. So he went over to Florida, and they're going to play him in that traditional tight end mode, which I mean, I guess for fantasy purposes isn't that great, but he showed he's definitely a solid target at Virginia, and with Florida hoping that they're going to turn their offense into more of a spread passing attack. I mean, when it comes to tight ends, you're just looking for any signs of life, and he definitely has. And so, I mean, I definitely agree with you that he will be nationally relevant this year, much like he was last year.
Yeah, I like how you say that. You just need signs of life.
No, he was clearly Virginia's leading receiver last year.
He had 43 catches.
Yeah.
Good year.
I mean, I could see him doing that again at Florida.
Agreed.
I have a question for you, Andrew. The tight end situation at Georgia, it says Jay Rome as the guy, the starter. Is he a pass catching? Arthur Lynch had some solid games and was fantasy relevant for a little while. Is there any chance Georgia replaces him with another tight end that could be fantasy relevant?
He was okay, dude. I think the other guys we mentioned in the SEC are going to be better than him. But Rome doesn't strike me as that explosive, move tight end or kind of guy that you're looking for. I think I'd rather have Ingram, Henry, McGee, all the guys we've mentioned over Rome. But I mean, I think he'll be hit or miss, kind of like how Georgia tight ends have been for the past few years. He might have a game where he has 4 for 50 and a touchdown, and then he might have 2 catches over the next 2 games. So I don't think it's anything to really count on.
Gotcha. I think that's pretty much it. I don't really see much besides that. Missouri doesn't really even use a tight end. Does LSU Have they thrown a pass to a tight end in the last 5 years? I don't think so. Besides that, I mean, Mississippi State isn't Malcolm Johnson's a pretty solid. Not solid. I'm sorry. In terms of tight ends in the whole country, he's a decent tight end, right? He had some decent numbers last year. 30 catches, almost 400 yards.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely there's a lot of tight ends that are going to put up, very similar numbers in this conference. I don't think there's going to be Ingram could run away, I guess, but after that, I think they're going to be, anywhere between 30 and 45 catches for like 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah, well, I think that really caps it off there. I don't really see anything else. For the standings in the conference, we've decided that Georgia's going to win it. And Andrew's going to go down to where's the national championship game yet? Hey, if Georgia goes to the SEC championship game, man, you have to come and visit.
I'm in.
Of course you're in. Love the intensity. Are you any chance you go to Georgia, Florida, by the way, November 1st?
I've talked about it with my buddies, but dude, it's the most expensive neutral site game in the entire country over the course of the year. It's tough.
And maybe in terms of ticket
elite tournament.
You're talking in terms of ticket price?
Yeah.
Dude, I'm telling you right now, I've got. How much do you think they go for?
I think the average price is around 300.
Dude, I've scalped. Well, last year's not a good case because they were both teams were bad. The year before, 2 years ago, I bought mine for like $30.
Really?
Yeah, I've gone 2 years in a row less than 40. I know this is like we're just talking to each other like we're not on the air, but $35 last year and maybe 30 the year before that. But
I don't know, dude. I was just reading an article.
No, I believe it, but the problem is like nobody StubHub, man. That's all that stuff. I believe it in terms of that. But anyways, all right. Next time you guys will be seeing us will be next week, likely Wednesday night, to hit up this first slate of Fantasy Elite action. Ole Miss game. I'm sorry, the Boise State game, the Texas A&M game, and then I'm not sure of the third one. It's going to be this slate, but we'll get it to you. So make sure you're aware of that. We'll be hitting you guys up on Twitter. Make sure you know the time. Appreciate you guys coming in and watching us, talking SEC and Georgia football and Todd Gurley. So we'll be seeing you guys next week, all right? See you later.